Hey everybody, NEWBRO here. Today I'm going to be hitting you with 7 tips that I use to immediately improve at Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer. Starting off with tip number 1, play from the outside in. Now I don't know about y'all, but I prefer to minimize the number of places that I can be shot from. In fact, that's a tip that I apply in real life too, and I haven't died once in more than 25 years. By sticking closer to the edge of the map, you limit the number of places that you can be engaged from while still being able to engage opponents running around towards the middle. Shipment's a good example of this concept because most people seem to intuitively know that if you go through the middle sections, you're more likely to get shot in the back or blown up, so most of the fighting usually happens around the outside of the map. I see people constantly taking the most direct path from objective to objective straight through mid, and most of the time they don't make it to the next objective until after they die and spawn closer to it. On to tip number 2, use less decoys. I mentioned this in my last video, but I'm going to quickly mention it again here because it's important and I can do what I want because it's my video. Using decoy grenades is great for leveling your weapons, but the score you get from decoys contributes heavily to your score per minute, which contributes to skill-based matchmaking. The problem is you didn't really do anything through your gameplay to earn that score per minute, and the matchmaking algorithm is going to put you with people who probably did do something to earn that score per minute. Trust me, just play 5 games without decoy grenades and you're going to start seeing your gunfights get a little bit easier, even if that's the only thing that you adjust about your gameplay. Before I get into tip number 3, if you made it this far, go ahead and hit that like button really any number of times as long as it's an odd number, and consider subscribing for more. You guys absolutely killed it on my last video, so let's keep this train rolling so I can start making content for y'all full time. Also, if you have any topics that you want me to make a video on, go ahead and drop them in the comments and I'll do my best. With that out of the way, on to tip number 3. Take it slow until you can't. I've been fortunate enough to do some cool guy action shit in real life, and I always tell people take it slow until you can't. What I mean by that is get as much information as you can about the fight that you're about to pick, and when it's time to engage, do it fast. For Call of Duty purposes, that means stop rushing into rooms. Simple as that. If you're entering a room or a structure, get as much information as you can from the outside, and then either slide or jump through the entry point to clear whatever's left. If you just rush into a room, there are tons of places the enemy could be hiding and ADSing right at the door you just came in from, waiting to take your pretty little head off. You have a bunch of unknown variables to clear and pay attention to while they only have 1 or 2. You're at a major reactionary disadvantage. Now, I could talk about how to take down a room all day, but I'm going to leave it at this. Use the entry points and windows to get a good picture of what's going on. Back up off whatever entry point you're looking through and move around it to see as much of the interior as possible, because if you're close up to it and the enemy is ADS'd, it's a lot more likely for them to see you and start popping shots. When you've got it narrowed down to 1 or 2 places they could be, slide or jump into the room and clear that spot. That way, if they're ADS'd on the door, they have to adjust their aim to hit you. If you just meander your way into the room, ADSing the whole way, you've just entered into a fair gunfight, and that's not where you want to be. For tip number 4, practice centering. Centering is one of the most important skills to pick up in FPS games, period, and it's simply the art of keeping the center dot on your screen in the fight. What I mean by that is you need to be aware of what the center dot is doing at all times and do your best to keep it exactly where you expect the enemy to be. I find myself constantly having to adjust the dot because I'm running around with it just a little bit too low or a little bit to the side of the place where I'm expecting the enemy to pop up, and when they finally do pop up, now I have to snap my aim onto them and pray to the gods that I don't overshoot them and have to adjust my aim again before I can even start firing. This is why my previous tip is so effective, because jumping around the corner causes somebody who's already properly centered on the corner to have to adjust their aim anyway, thus negating their advantage. That's why I said to center on where you expect the enemy to be, because if you're playing against a team that likes to jump, slide, or sprint around corners, it might be beneficial to hold that center dot a little bit away from the corner to compensate for them trying to clear that corner quickly. On to tip number 5, stop camping. I'm not even saying this because I don't like camping, I'm saying it because it's generally a bad idea. People are going to figure out where you're at pretty quickly and either avoid that area for the rest of the game or do their dead level best to get you out of there. We live in the drill charge era now, people. Camping just ain't what it used to be. In general, you want to be getting a kill or 2, then moving on to the next position. Now, by all means, weaponize power positions as much as you can, but just know that every kill you get in one spot is one more person that knows exactly where you are and what you're doing. Even if you're just rotating between 2 or 3 different spots, people aren't going to know exactly where you're at, so they're not going to know where to avoid. Trust me, you're going to get a lot more kills this way than if you just lock down the upstairs room on Shoot House for the entire game. On to tip number 6, sprint carefully. Footstep audio is really aggressive this year, and a good number of people have decent headsets these days. That means that more often than not, your enemy is going to know roughly where you're coming from and when they're going to see you before you even know that they're hiding in the corner like a rat. By sprinting around the map as much as possible, all you're doing is making their job easier. The sprint audio is so loud you can practically hear it from across the map anyway, then when you add on to that how much longer it takes you to ADS from a sprint, you're putting yourself at a massive disadvantage every time you hit that sprint button. My recommendation is to save sprinting for when you're either relatively certain there aren't any enemies nearby or for when you need to quickly move across a sight line. If you've already flanked around behind the enemy, it's not time to start sprinting around letting everyone know you're there. The first indication they get that you're around should be your gunfire. For my last tip, stop neglecting your secondaries. Your secondary slot is one of the most important parts of your loadout, and if you're one of those people who runs around with a launcher on your back that you haven't used in 23 games, you're doing life wrong. Pistols are an okay oh shit button.
Remember, switching to your pistol is always faster than reloading.
But if you're not doing camos for them, you're probably not pulling them out and using them anyway. Your life's going to be a lot easier if you strap a pila to your back and actually use it when you hear that pesky UAV notification come up. Just try to remember that your enemy forfeited their right to have UAVs the minute they hopped into a lobby with you and your pila. So congratulations, now you can afford to run quick fix instead of ghost. If you really just can't be bothered to use your launcher like me most of the time, then come to the dark side and run overkill with a riot shield on your back. At least that way it's a little bit harder to shoot you in the back while you're running around, and you can cosplay as a Ninja Turtle because the government refuses to share their radioactive ooze to turn your childhood dreams into a reality. I'm not bitter, I'm just coping in my own way, okay? Anyway, that's all I have for you today, folks. If you made it this far, you clearly liked the video, so make sure to hit that like button if you didn't the first time I told you, and definitely subscribe for more helpful content. Until next time, peace.